Sending a message. 39 Chinese planes enter Taiwan's air defense zone. A growing problem. COVID cases surge just days before the beginning of Lunar New Year. Vaccine backlash. Protesters in Washington, D.C., Brussels and London take to the streets demanding an end to mandates. And making their mark. We meet the secret weapons that could propel Wulin elementary baseball team to the top of the league. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. On Sunday, Taiwan reported 39 Chinese planes entering its Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ, making it the largest number so far this year. This comes after US and Japanese naval forces have been carrying out exercises in the South China Sea and as tensions in the Taiwan Strait continue to soar. Jaime Ocon reports.
Barely 3 weeks into the new year, and over 100 Chinese planes have reportedly crossed into Taiwan's Air Defense Zone, or ADIZ, thus far. The latest group included over 24 fighter jets, which entered the southwestern corner of Taiwan's ADIZ, and several electronic warfare planes that flew further south near Taiwan's Tonga Islands, totaling 39 planes in a single day, the most this year. In response, Taiwan scrambled its own fighters and deployed missile defense systems. Experts believe that China's latest incursion is meant to send a strong message across the region.
So there was definitely this political purpose, and we can see that a lot with many of the large sorties. So I would say I typically classify 10 or more as a exceptionally large day of sorties. I think that there is that gray zone military pressure and political purpose for the large ones, and the smaller flights are likely more operational in nature.
As Taiwan and its neighbors seek to manage a more assertive China, it hopes that it can do so without triggering a potential conflict. Chris Ma and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
To discuss the significance of Sunday's incursions, I spoke to Sean King, who is Senior Vice President at Park Strategies and a scholar at the University of Notre Dame Leo Institute for Asia Studies.
Japanese Prime Minister Kishida and U.S. President Biden had a virtual summit last week, and Taiwan did appear in the joint statement afterwards. Also, there's an unusually large U.S. naval presence in the region right now. And then lastly, Taiwan Vice President William Lai will visit Honduras this week, and where he may just accidentally, on purpose, meet U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, just like in 2009 at an El Salvadorian inaugural banquet. Then Taiwan President Ma Ying-jeou just happened to bump into then U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. So Beijing may be trying to get ahead of that bad news by showing its strength now.
You mentioned there was unusually large U.S. presence in the region. Why is that?
Asia is a very strong focus of the Biden administration, and with Beijing flexing its muscles, it's only natural that we would stand by our friends and allies and partners in the region. Perhaps with the troubles in Ukraine right now, we just may want to reassure our friends and allies in the region that just because we're focused on what's happening in Ukraine, we haven't forgotten about Asia. And this extra show of force is just to remind people that we can walk and chew gum at the same time.
And one final question, Sean. So how do you think the US would take this, the 39 incursions yesterday?
I don't think we're going to overreact, but we're certainly going to keep an eye on it, and our strong presence in the region speaks to that.
On Monday, Taiwan's Central Epidemic Command Center reported 15 new domestic cases of COVID-19 and 36 new imported ones. After months of no or few community infections in Taiwan, a spate of clusters is raising fears ahead of the week-long Lunar New Year holiday. Louise Watt reports.
This free trade zone and its dormitories near Taiwan's Taoyuan International Airport have become COVID-19 hotspots. Air cargo passes through this zone, and now so too the virus. The surge stems from an airport cluster that spilled over to a restaurant, a bank, and several schools in Taoyuan City. Now 4,500 workers in the free trade zone are being tested, along with their contacts. In 48 hours, more than 100 cases have been confirmed. This includes more than 30 on Sunday from 9 companies. The outbreak is also spreading to factories in neighbouring Hsinchu County. On Sunday evening, local authorities added 5 new community testing stations after 5 new cases were reported. In the capital, Taipei, 4 new cases at the weekend included a chef at the city's Grand Hotel and 2 of her family members. The hotel was disinfected. Authorities are investigating how they got the virus. With growing numbers of people entering Taiwan and testing positive, and the number of domestic cases also rising, patients with mild symptoms are being sent to an intensive quarantine hotel rather than hospital. But this quarantine hotel for positive cases is expected to be full before the Lunar New Year holiday starts this weekend. As Taiwan's COVID situation heats up, the country on Monday received the first batch of 10,000 courses of Merck's oral antiviral drug, Molnupiravir. The pills will be distributed to medical institutions as soon as possible and used to treat people who are sick with mild COVID symptoms, hoping to stop them getting more serious. Alex Chen and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
Hong Kong has reported its highest number of new COVID cases in a year and a half, as more residents are put under lockdown. The territory reported 140 new cases on Sunday, the most since July 2020. An Omicron cluster at the Kwai Chung public housing estate has now expanded to more than 170 cases, with the worst affected blocks placed under 5-day lockdowns. Authorities have also culled over 2,500 hamsters and other small animals after tracing one outbreak to a pet shop worker. However, no evidence of animal-to-human transmission by the pets has yet been confirmed. The latest wave of COVID-19 infections brought by the Omicron variant has prompted further vaccine and mask mandates in a number of Western countries. But 2 years into the pandemic, frustrated members of the public are increasingly pushing back on what they see as government overreach. Bing Wang has more.
Police in Belgium used tear gas and water cannons to disperse crowds protesting the latest COVID restrictions. The protests in the capital, Brussels, left buildings damaged. This came after the Belgian Prime Minister announced booster shots would be needed to maintain COVID passes to enter public spaces. Some Belgians feel the passes are just the tip of the iceberg for more government control.
To say the truth and not to mislead the people and take care of the vulnerable, but leave the other people, the healthy people, go to work, go to school, go to party, etc.
COVID-19 infections in Belgium are at their peak, with around 40,000 infections reported each day. Across the English Channel, staff from the UK's National Health Service are protesting vaccine mandates for all health and care home workers. Protesters held signs reading "Protected NHS from the government" and "No jab, no job, blackmail and coercion by the Conservative government." Health workers are concerned thousands will lose their jobs.
They're watching family members face financial ruin because they're going to be chucked out of their jobs. So this is not a whether you're jabbed or not, it's a fundamental human right to allow someone to accept or decline a medical procedure.
And across the Atlantic, in the United States, where COVID has hit hard with almost 70 million cases, thousands rallied in the capital, Washington, D.C., against President Biden's vaccine and mask policies.
I'm here to stand up for my rights to be able to say that I do not want the vaccine. I care about my body, I care about the effects that this is having on people, and I don't wish to suffer those effects. I live in the United States of America. This is a free country. We should be free to say what we want and what we do not want, in our bodies especially.
The COVID pandemic is at its 2-year mark, and the number of daily infections is still high. The new measures may be unpopular, but governments believe this may be the best course of action. Asnaya Zhou and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
Russia has rejected claims from the British Foreign Office that it's plotting to install a puppet government in Ukraine. The British Foreign Ministry said it had information the Kremlin was considering former Ukrainian lawmaker Yevhen Murayev as a potential candidate to head a pro-Russian leadership, but declined to provide evidence to back the accusation. Tensions are mounting between Russia and the West over Moscow's massing of troops along the border with Ukraine. Moscow insists it has no plans to invade. On Sunday, the United States ordered the families of its embassy staff to leave Ukraine. The Taliban has begun talks with Western government officials and Afghan civil groups in Oslo as the group's leaders look to negotiate the resumption of humanitarian aid to the country.
No to Taliban! No to Taliban! No to Taliban! No to Taliban!
Anti-Taliban activists gathered in the Norwegian capital on Sunday to protest the Taliban's first visit to Europe since retaking power in August last year. It came as a Taliban delegation of 15 all-male officials met with women's rights groups and other human rights activists before meetings with representatives from the US, UK and EU. The Taliban is not recognized by any country as the legitimate government of Afghanistan. Ahead of the talks, Norway's foreign minister said the discussions do not signal a move toward recognition. Taliban officials say they are focused on restoring suspended aid projects in the country.
Regarding tomorrow or coming days discussion, we will discuss with US, European countries regarding acceleration of humanitarian assistance, reopening of those postponed projects which already were donated by European Union, US.
Coming up, we find out about the new task force that's all about keeping pets safe. Details in a moment.
This could be the best thing you've ever slurped in your life. Oh my. Are you sure this is not chicken? Cheers. Oh, would you look at that, bro? I think it's calling my name. Need it like the owes you money. Thing of beauty. Unbelievable. Why am I getting emotional? Did someone say not enough chocolate? And we're done. There's nothing we can't make vegan, you guys. I don't think I can describe how good that bite was. You don't even need to be vegan to enjoy this. Is it though? It is.
台湾最有人情味的地方。
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus. For more great news from Taiwan and around the world, download the app TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching Taiwan Plus News. Taiwan's legislature on Monday officially passed into law new stricter rules against driving under the influence. Under the new legislation, repeat offenders will have their surnames and photos made public. The maximum penalty has also been raised for drunk drivers caught at road checks, with offenders receiving a possible jail time of 3 years and a fine equivalent to nearly $11,000. If a drunk driver kills or seriously injures another person, the fine could be as high as $108,000. President Tsai Ing-wen is facing a political backlash within her own party for opening a cultural park and library dedicated to Taiwan's former president, Jiang Jingguo. Lawmakers from Tsai's Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, criticised the building as paying homage to a man implicated in the arrest, detention and killings of people critical of the government. Jiang Jingguo ruled Taiwan from 1978 to 1984, following in the footsteps of his father Chiang Kai-shek. Before that, he oversaw the country's secret police, helping to implement a campaign of political suppression known as the White Terror. But Tsai on Saturday called for unity among Taiwanese people and praised Jiang Jingguo for his defiance against aggression from Beijing.
每一位总统的历史定位都应该由人民来决定。面对当前北京对台湾一波又一波的军事及政治施压，蒋经国前总统坚定保台的立场，毫无疑问也是当前台湾人民最大的共识。但面对未来的挑战，我们必须共同合作，团结保卫台湾。
To find out more about Jiang Jingguo's legacy and Taiwan's efforts to confront the injustices of the past, our reporter Rick Glauert spoke to historian James Lin in Seattle. He began by asking who Jiang Jingguo was.
He's a bit of a slightly kind of mixed legacy figure in Taiwanese history because there is a narrative that Jiang Jingguo was instrumental for Taiwan's democratization because he was essentially in charge during the democratization process. But at the same time, he also was a major political figure within the Kuomintang and within the Republic of China government during the darkest days of the White Terror and of martial law. And he was personally in charge of many of the institutions that were responsible for the repressive period under martial law. So both of these together means that for some people, he's seen as someone who was important for Taiwan's democratization, but for other people, he's seen as kind of a symbol of Taiwan's authoritarian period and its deep political repression.
And so what is Taiwan doing for transitional justice, and how would this week's debate about the cultural park fit into that?
I think it's important for the current government, for the DPP, to make sure that the history that's represented within this cultural park, and especially within this presidential library, is one that takes into account the problems of the Kuomintang period, of this martial law period. So they want to make sure that transitional justice also includes an accurate historical narrative that includes the past wrongdoings, so that future generations can make sure to learn about this.
And what do you think the cultural park and the conversations around it say about Taiwanese identity in 2022?
So I would say that Taiwanese identity today is one that is meant to be, I like to call it kind of like a big umbrella identity. It's one that's meant to encompass all different sorts of experiences, lived experiences and memories and identifications of people who reside on Taiwan today. It's more of a civic nationalism than it is of one based on maybe 40 years ago would have been based more centrally on a Republic of China or Chinese-centric identity. So today, as especially the Taiwan administration, following kind of a DPP model, wants to have this more encompassing identity categorization.
And now for a look at some of the stories making headlines around the world. Gunfire rang out at several military bases in Burkina Faso on Sunday, but the government has denied the military has seized power. There were exchanges of gunfire at multiple army barracks, including 2 in the capital, Ouagadougou. Anger is mounting over the government's failure to prevent attacks by Al-Qaeda and ISIL-linked militants. Speaking on national television, the country's defense minister denied President Roch Kabore had been detained. Relief supplies from New Zealand have arrived in Tonga a week after a volcanic eruption and tsunami devastated the Pacific island nation. The HMNZS Wellington docked alongside the HMNZS Aotearoa in the Tongan capital, Nuku'alofa, on Sunday to unload much-needed supplies. The UN says more than 84% of the population, around 84,000 people, have been affected by the ashfall from the eruption and by the tsunami that wiped out whole villages. A young woman has made a remarkable journey. At just 19 years old, Zara Rutherford flew around the world by herself, setting a new world record. Sandy Chi spoke to her about her accomplishment.
There are plenty of hitches in Zara Rutherford's journey, but despite wildfires, smog, extreme cold and last-minute COVID restrictions, the 19-year-old flew into the record books as the youngest woman to fly solo around the world. She travelled more than 52,000 kilometres across 5 continents. The British-Belgian aviator broke the previous record set in 2017 by a 30-year-old Afghan-American pilot.
It's incredible. I'm just so happy to be home. It's been a long 5 months, so seeing the family again, seeing the cats again, I'm really happy. I would say I've become a lot more grateful for the small things, so for the things that make home home. It's been really challenging, and I remember at times I would just miss really random things like walking to the local bakery or watching TV with my cats, or these really very specific things. And I think it's made me appreciate those things a lot more, and now, I won't take this for granted.
Her trip took 2 months longer than scheduled due to adverse weather, but she received a hero's welcome when she finally landed in Belgium on January 20th.
Wulin Elementary is known for its championship-winning baseball team, but with some players aging out, new talent is needed. This has led to the team to break out of the traditional gender norms to lead them back into glory. Bing Wang takes a look at the team's secret weapons.
Wulin Elementary's coach Li Yifan gives his young players a few words of encouragement before the game. The team has high hopes of winning this year because of their secret weapons, 11-year-old twin sisters Kiwuya and Puni.
我是从4年级下学期私下，我是那个5年五上的时候，因为妈妈的反对嘛，然后我就那个硬要进去啊，然后就去参加。我们偷偷参加1天而已。
The sisters are now team captains, but initially their parents didn't want them on the field.
我们那边家长的期望就是小时候打棒球当作是练身体，但是到了国中的时候，还是希望他们是好好往读书的方向去走。
But the young twins were not deterred.
Baseball is usually coined as a sport for men. There's a clear distinction between baseball and softball. Baseball for men, softball for women. But Wulin Elementary here is challenging those norms by offering girls a chance to play in a very male-dominated sport.
Wulin Elementary has won regional tournaments, but the players involved in those games have aged out of the team. Now, Kiwuya and Puni hope to lead a new set of teammates onto glory.
几乎都是重新教，因为我们每年都是每一届的人数都不太一样，可能就是训练上的口语跟那个指导的术语那些都要去改变，去让小朋友去可以接受。
The team now has the most girls in the tournament.
最喜欢女生棒球选手？
女生哦，没有人呢，我没有看过女的。
There's never been a female professional baseball player, not in the United States, Japan, South Korea, or Taiwan. But the tides could be changing. Young players like Monet Davis and Ella Bruning made their marks in the Little League. And in Major League Baseball, the Miami Marlins are being led by Kim Ng, the first time a woman is making a baseball team's most important decisions. And for little girls in Taiwan, Kiuya and Puni are trailblazing the path from the sidelines onto the field. Patrick Chen, Alex Chen, and Bing Wong for TaiwanPlus.
To make sure pets are properly protected and taken care of, Taiwan's central government has established its first ever dedicated task force to oversee all aspects of the pet industry. Our partners at Radio Taiwan International have more.
Taiwan is opening the first government unit with the sole focus of improving the welfare of pets and animals. That's because pets are becoming more and more popular in Taiwan. 2 out of 7 households own one. Agriculture Minister Chen Ji-zhong said in a Facebook post that this new unit will create at least 100 positions and have an annual budget of nearly $5 million. It will monitor and manage trends in the pet industry, such as pet insurance, grooming, food, training, and pet sitting. Chen says that Taiwan needs to have a department like this because the country's pet industry is worth nearly $2 billion per year. Over 2 million households own pets in Taiwan. The department will also inspect the ethics of animal performances and educate the public about the potential danger in raising animals that are invasive species in Taiwan. It will list the types of pets that need special approval or are illegal. It's clear that advocating for pets is an increasingly important issue for the millions of pet owners in Taiwan. After all, these furry and feathered friends are more like family members to their owners.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. Stay safe and see you next time.